Hey everybody, it's Matt from LolKing here doing another interview for the second day of the semifinals here at the Season 3 World Championships. I'm here with Voyboy from Team Curse, who has been on the analyst desk both yesterday and today. And I just want to ask him a couple questions just about that process and, a couple other things that have kind of been crossing my mind. First off, what's it like making that transition between, being a player and going to like the analyst desk and kind of having to explain your reasoning?
Well, personally for me, going and being in front of the analyst desk, if I ignore the fact that I'm in front of like hundreds of thousands of people, which is a little bit nerve-wracking for me, but I got over it after like the first, I think, transition period. Personally, I'm really used to just going through games, talking about like reasoning, analysis, and stuff, because that's basically what I do every time I play, whether I'm like streaming or not. I think about the game. I think like, what's the lane matchups? What's the counter picks here? What should the team be doing? What's the transition period? So going out there and being able to give my input on bans and picks was actually pretty natural. It felt really good, so I was happy to take part.
Cool. I'm not sure about you personally, but I know a lot of pros do like classes and that kind of stuff. Is it a skill to kind of be able to take like your wording and like your kind of mental narrative and be able to like bring that down to like a layman audience almost?
Yeah, I think so. It's something that I've been working on for a few months, or a few years, I guess. I've always been trying to take like an instructional role as a streamer, as a personality. I always want to like spread my knowledge and just help make the community like as good as it can be. So that's what I try to do every time I stream. So coming up here, doing it, it was pretty easy. I think a lot of players, not as many players are like that familiar with doing it, but I think if people just put the time in, just spend a little effort thinking about it, how to do it best, it can come pretty easily to pretty much anyone.
That's one of the coolest things that I've seen here anyways, just chilling in the interview lounge, is that there's a lot of players just kind of sitting, with other players, kind of just, shooting back and forth on just what's happening during the game. Have you been doing that with, just people around here?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, pretty much everyone from EU and NA and the other regions are here. Everyone's just chilling in the VIP lounge, I guess, and just looking at the games, talking about like really cool plays or like interesting picks, stuff like that. If something goes through that people disagree with, everyone's going to be like, oh my god, like why are they giving Orianna up? Why do they like blah blah blah? Why do they pick Fizz here? But yeah, it's a blast.
Especially with players that you may not see that often. There's a lot of European players, managers, that kind of stuff. Is it good seeing like just different perspectives?
Yeah, most definitely. I think for the most part, because of how like the LCS and like the different regions work, all the teams kind of play in their own little microcosms, and everyone just develops their own play styles, their own champion picks. Like basically, everyone just has these like things that everyone thinks is strong. For example, like Renekton is one of the top picks in China and stuff, but in NA and EU, he's kind of undervalued, I think. So it's interesting to see everyone coming to the table and just giving their input on stuff like that.
Well, speaking of input, we just saw Fnatic, really have like this kind of glimmering moment of possibly being able to take it to a Game 5 anyway. Royal Club, of course, comes back, closes out the series. So maybe I can just get a couple of your thoughts on like what Royal Club did well in that last game in order to bring it back.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, they started out with 2-0. They had a tough loss to Fnatic, and then it looked like Fnatic was actually taking control of that last game. But Royal Club just grouped up. They allowed Uzi to get a lot of farm. They actually funneled a lot of farm into him early. They put him in 2v1 mid against the Fizz, and Fnatic had to respond with a 2v1 of their, or 2v2 of their own, because Fizz would just get denied too hard. And because they had Leona and Varus mid, he got a little bit behind off that, and that just farm differential allowed Uzi to get really ahead. And I think Fnatic actually pretty much had the game won. They kind of faltered here and there, but yeah, I mean, really good play, decisive, clean execution on Royal Club's part to take it back.
I think something really specific anyway that happened was that they had sent Fizz to deal with, I believe, Shen. I want to say Shen. But A, they didn't have a way to interrupt Stand United, and Fizz was the person that was blowing up Kale anyway, that was letting people kind of, at least get to Uzi, take him out early in the game anyway, or early in the fight rather. Do you kind of like, as someone who's been in many a team fight yourself, are you able to kind of like slow time down a little bit and be like, okay, here's what's happening?
Yeah, I think so. It's not something that you just like you're noticing while the fight's playing out. But if I play out a team fight and then I look back and I'm like, what was I doing there? A lot of it's just like subconscious. Like I'm playing an assassin. I'm just diving in the backline, trying to kill as many people as possible. I think it's sort of like some sort of like Super Saiyan instinct like kicks into every player, where everyone's just like hyper focused, and you're not always going to play exceptionally, but when you do, you can definitely tell how it happens.
Of course, like as a player who's been around for a while, you've probably been on both sides of that match where, you're a team that, there's a team that, like your opponents are starting to come back in, in a series, and then you can finally shut them down. Or you're like Fnatic, where there's like a glimmer of hope, and then all of a sudden it doesn't work out. So maybe, could you kind of give us like a little bit of insight into both sides of that anyway? We'll start with like, what's it like to be a team where you're like, oh my gosh, if we don't like if we don't clutch right now, we're going to be out of the tournament.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's a lot of pressure on, like, this is the World Championships. That game, it could have given Fnatic another chance to come back and just make it into the finals. Royal Club managed to close it out. They would have, I mean, they did. They would have had a chance at the finals and a really good shot of winning it all. I think the pressure definitely gets to players sometimes. Like, for example, just Rumble Ultimates from SOAS, they were really on point for like the majority of that game, and then towards the end, as they started losing, as the pressure I think started kicking in, they looked a little bit more shaky, and that's something that I've definitely, myself and a lot of other players are very familiar with. Like sometimes the pressure just gets to you, your skill shots aren't going to be on point, your team fighting may be a little bit lacking. Some players are like really good about that actually though. Like sometimes like the pressure's on, the clock's ticking, you got to win this game, you got to come out. They just play like out of their mind, but then of course the converse can also happen. So just ended up working in Royal's favor.
Especially now that Curse is kind of in that position where you guys did not fall or finish too well in the LCS. Are you guys kind of in that rebuilding phase like Fnatic might be right now? Like, of course, Fnatic, they're kind of, I think all the teams that are like out of Worlds and out of their perspective LCSs right now are kind of on a little bit of a vacation kind of mindset at least. But how do you kind of pick up the pieces and just start restructuring for the next time?
Yeah, I think a lot of teams are just looking at themselves, trying to see what they need to do to improve themselves to be at the best possible scenario for next season. And that's definitely something that we're doing as well on Curse. We're just trying to figure out what we need to do to make our team as strong as possible, and we're probably going to figure those things out in the next few weeks, so looking forward to that.
As someone who participated in Season 2 World Championships, correct me if I'm wrong, you were there with, I believe, CLG. Do you feel that, for some reason, I'm looking at this Worlds and I'm thinking it's so much more even than it was last year. Like group stages, barring GGEU, Mineski, teams were taking games off of each other, that kind of stuff. Especially like the semifinals, quarterfinals, they aren't. While certain matchups kind of have been roles, there are more really crazy series like that. So as someone who's kind of experienced both, one as a player and one as a spectator, do you kind of want to talk about like the differences between last season and this season?
Yeah, for sure. I think this season, just across the board, the games, the teams are a lot more even, a lot more close. I think a big part of this is because of how standardized like the LCS format and like OGN and LPL has all become. It's very easy to just go back, go through websites, find VODs, watch games, whether you're staying up for them or you're looking at them a few weeks into the future. It's very easy for teams to learn from each other and just grow as a global scene. Like I know for NA and EU, a lot of people are constantly having their eyes on the OGN games. The series that comes out from like SKT1, KT Rolster, all the top Korean teams, everyone's just analyzing them, trying to see what are they doing good, what champion picks are they going for, and trying to integrate that into their own play style. So I think a lot of that just carries over, and I'm sure a lot of the other regions do the same thing. And all this just together adds to the overall play style of global teams. So I think going into this Worlds, like a lot of people just expected like the Korean teams just completely roll over everyone else, but then we saw like Ozone faltering, Fnatic almost making it to the finals, just a lot more even play all around. And I mean, Cloud9 could have been in their position if their series had gone a little bit differently, so I really don't think you can count anyone out at this point.
It's kind of been that magic word for all of Season 3 has been infrastructure. Like we've heard it so much, and now, like as you're saying, video and being able to watch VODs and that kind of stuff is just a major part of it. Last kind of question, do you think that SKT can figure out this bottom lane, from Royal Club?
I think so. Piglet and Pumandu, while they looked a little bit shaky previously in like the group stages and stuff, I think they've been coming out strong. They played phenomenally against Najin Sword. They made Prey and Kane look a little bit shaky, and I definitely think that they can match up to Uzi. I think the series is going to be really close. I mean, these are the two best teams in the world right now, and I honestly have no idea who's going to win.
Thank you, Voyboy, again for talking to us. Of course, do you have any Twitter, sponsors, anything you want to plug?
Yeah, of course. Twitter.com/Voyboy, Facebook.com/Voyboy, and of course, thank you to our sponsors, Alienware, TeamSpeak, and CM Storm. Thanks, guys. Of course, thanks to all our fans.
Cool, and if you want to follow us, you can subscribe to us on YouTube for more interviews from this tournament, and you can also follow us on Twitter at LolKing.net. If you want to follow me on Twitter, you can at @MattDemers. Thank you so much for watching. Have a good rest of the tournament.